Hello and welcome to a Chosky review. My name is Josh Cho, and we are going to do a review today on the Macallan 12-year-old single malt whiskey. This is a very common whiskey you'll find at most bars. I think you won't have too much of a problem if you are looking for single malt and you haven't really got a big selection. See if they have this on the lineup. It's an interesting single malt whiskey, and I think it's by far one of the better ones as a single malt that's readily available in most places. I think the first time I had this was, I believe, a few years ago when I was just getting into single malt Scotch whiskey, and it really was sort of like a gateway into drinking and being interested in the single malt whiskey. Specifically the sherry influenced whiskeys. I would say it's a very heavily sherried whiskey, and if you haven't had sherry whiskey before, I honestly think this would be the best place to start. The Glendronach 12 is also really great single malt, exclusively sherry whiskey, but my heart goes out to the Macallan 12, also known as the Mac 12. And it's probably because it's just a little bit easier to find than I think the Glendronachs. Although I probably would have to say I prefer the Glendronach's complexity over the Macallan 12, but for a straightforward whiskey that's sherried influence, and if it's your first sherry, if you want to get into it and you want to try an entry-level sherry malt whiskey, I would say go with the Macallan 12. You can't go wrong with this one. So just to show you the box, it's got this nice little dark burgundy with gold lettering on the label, and pretty standard light box, and I'll show you the bottle in a second. The bottle is actually kind of a cool, has an interesting shape to it. It's got like these really broad shoulders, very tall looking bottle. Kind of looks like looks kind of like a butler or something like that in front of the hotel or something. Open the doors for you. It's kind of fancy. The way that it's shaped looks kind of like a guy wearing a tuxedo. At least that's how I always imagined it when I looked at the bottle. But it's a really nice color. As you can see, I'm almost done with this one. It's my second bottle that I've owned, and I'm probably going to get another one really quickly after this one's done, just because you never know how much these bottles will go for after the demand keeps increasing for these sherry single malts that are aged in exclusively in these barrels. So if you look at the color, it is natural color, and I would say it's probably a gold color, gold to maybe a little bit of an amber, but mainly gold. And what's great about Macallan is that they're known for, no color added to the whiskey. So all of the color that you get from the whiskey is straight from the barrel, and so it's known for its natural color, strictly all from the sherry oak. And the sherry oak is shipped from Spain, I believe, in an area north of Spain, in a region called Jerez, or Jerez. I'm not exactly sure I'm pronouncing that right. But that's where they get their sherry oak barrels, and it's seasoned with sherry wine, and I think it's seasoned for about 18 months before they dump it all out and they ship it back to the distilleries in Macallan and Speyside, where they eventually put their spirits inside and age it for 12 years for this bottle. They have a 15, I believe, fine oak, and I think that's just European oak without the sherry. And there's an 18, which is sort of the top of the line of the main bottles that they have going on, and it's quite a pretty penny for that bottle. I think I paid about $45 for this bottle. I think it's gone up though for about now 50 or 55 since I got this bottle. So it's unfortunate, but there's definitely the signs of the times with the rising demand and these single malt whiskeys not being able to reach that demand. So the prices are just they're going really high, and they're going up. So see if you can get a bottle before it gets too expensive. And hopefully Macallan, you guys don't ever have to go to the no age statements. I hope you will never end up swapping this 12-year-old for something else that's not given a age statement. So really hope that that still maintains true with the distiller, with maintaining that 12-year-old, because I really love this product, and hope you guys don't change it. It's a really great product. Okay, so why don't we get straight into the nose and the taste, of course, the most important part to this review. And I would have to say the most the most common notes that people get when they first take a whiff of this is the intense sweetness of the sherry influence on this whiskey. And that's probably the first thing that I got when I first had it a couple years ago. And I would still probably say it's the same. It has that really nice fruity aroma to it, and I can already smell it even without my nose getting in front of this glass. It's got a very intense dried fruit smell. So I don't want to give you a much more thorough smell when I get into this. Yeah, so right off the bat it has this very deep dried fruit nose and extremely fruity, very creamy, and lots of vanilla already in that first smell. It's very sweet forward. It doesn't really hold back on that, and it's I think it's not for everybody, especially those that don't like sweet sweeter smells and tastes in their whiskey. But I really enjoy sherried malts, so this is definitely a win on the smell for me. In the background, you do get some of that spiciness, and I think that's why Macallan has mentioned that it has this note of ginger in it, and I didn't really pick that up until much later, but there is that spice that you get from the European casks, the sherry barrels, so it's got a bit of this ginger, it's got a bit of the cinnamon in the background with a little bit of also nutmeg and some dried spices, but definitely sweet is the first thing I get. It's this brown sugar, molasses, dried fruit, candied fruits. The first fruit that I could think of when I smelled this was a fig, a dried grape or a fig, a really intense, gooey fig. So it's really quite nice. As far as the legs, the tears, what they call it, the viscosity is really nice. It's definitely oily. I can see it clinging on the glass really well. And again, just a beautiful color. Okay, off to the taste. Oh wow. It's such a nice delivery of that sweetness with the spice. And definitely, a nice, very evenly, balanced development. It's not a very harsh, change from that sweetness to the spice. It has a nice gradual shift, and it's very easy to. It's just a very smooth and very creamy texture. So it's very easy to drink this. You kind of have to be careful with this one because you can drink it quite easily. As far as the finish, I would say it's moderate. It's not too long. And, it's not overly complicated, which is not a bad thing. I kind of like that. I think a lot of people kind of dismiss that in the Macallan, maybe because also a lot of people, I think, get really overcritical about this whiskey because it's very popular, which is a very common thing to see when things become so popular. You get a little bit more of a criticism that gets developed with it. And I always hear whenever there's criticism about it is that it's got kind of like a one-liner, one note, just sherry and that's it. And I don't know if that's entirely true, but I do like the immediacy of the sherry, and it's not, and it's a really nice, pleasant sherry, and I don't mind so much about its simplicity. It's not oversimplistic, but it's just the right amount of sort of entry-level sherry sort of complexity of a whiskey. So highly recommend it. I'm gonna add a little bit of water and see if there's anything that changes with this whiskey. I really don't ever add water to Macallan 12 because it's already at 43%, and that's pretty much where I like the ABV at, and nothing lower than that. But why don't I just go ahead and just try that and see what else I get out of this. Yeah, so I don't know, the smell is pretty much the same. I don't really notice anything different when I add the water. I'm going to try going for the taste. Yeah, I don't know if I needed to water it. I also prefer it without the water. It's a little more, the fruit is a lot more forward and more intense, I think, without the water. And with the water, it kind of dilutes it, unfortunately. So I personally don't think I need to add any water to it. I did want to mention about the character of the spirit, because that's actually there too, which is why I think it's not that simple. You can actually still get a really nice taste from the spirit. It has a nice fruity, youthful character to it, and I think it's from the distillery's the actual shape and the actual the size of it is apparently the smallest copper still in Speyside. So since it's so small, I guess the contact of the copper to the spirit is a lot higher, and because of that contact is such a higher percentage than most other copper stills in Speyside, it's able to regain a lot more flavor from that material, from that still. And that apparently is the reason why Macallan's known for that really nice fruitful character in the spirit. Aside from the fact that, of course, there's the intense sherry that's influenced in this whiskey from that barrel from Jerez, Spain. So if I were to rate it, I would say 87 out of 100. I would say it's about a point. I think they gave Glendronach 12 and 88. But it's about a point under. I would say it's probably because the complexity of Glendronach is a little bit more. But it's still a great whiskey, and I highly recommend it. Go try it, Macallan 12. And that's my review for today. Thanks.